Honestly, most romance anime are a massive time sink. You sit through 12 episodes of two characters completely failing to communicate, waiting for a confession that barely scratches an itch. But this year actually surprised me. Looking at 2026 so far, a handful of shows dropped the tired tropes and actually gave us some genuinely great storytelling. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 10 is Gals Can't Be Kind to Otaku. Look, we've all seen the premise a million times. The reclusive otaku kid sitting in the back of the classroom, convinced that the loud, popular Garu girls live in an entirely different universe. It's a trope that usually relies on cheap misunderstandings or wish fulfillment garbage. But when this thing dropped, it actually surprised a lot of people by how sharply written and genuinely funny it is. The core dynamic between Takuya, Kotoko, and Kei works because the show doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, it just executes the comedy with great timing. You've got characters trying desperately to hide their secret geek habits, leading to these hilarious, high-stress social standoffs where they're basically speaking in code across the classroom. What makes it land at the number 10 spot isn't just the laughs though. It's the fact that underneath the surface-level subculture jokes, the show actually gives these characters some real depth. When the walls come down and they stop pretending for the rest of the school, the shift from comedy to genuine connection feels earned. It's light, it's self-aware, and it doesn't waste your time dragging out the premise. If you want a fun, nerdy romantic comedy that doesn't take itself too seriously, this one was a very welcome surprise for 2026. Coming in at number 9 is The Invisible Man and His Soon-to-Be Wife. Let's be real for a second. Sometimes you don't want a heavy, emotionally draining melodrama where two people spend 12 episodes crying in the rain. Sometimes you just want something genuinely sweet, comforting, and a little bit whimsical. That's exactly where this show comes in. The premise is basically right there in the title, and it leans into the supernatural element with total charm. You've got an invisible guy working at a detective agency alongside his deeply perceptive, loving fiancée. Because he's literally transparent, the visual gags write themselves. He's constantly trying to blend into the background, while she spots him instantly and handles his quirks with absolute grace. What makes it work as a romance is that it skips the agonizing chase. They're already engaged, so the whole dynamic is about mutual care, comfort, and quiet affection. It's got this cozy slice-of-life pacing, where every episode feels like a warm cup of tea. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, and it doesn't need to. If you need a complete palate cleanser that just makes you smile without any manufactured stress, this one earned its spot. Let's move on to number 8. Coming in at number 8 is I Want to Love You Till Your Dying Day. If you want a romance that completely ditches the fluffy high school comedy vibe and goes for something heavy, intense, and emotionally draining in the best way possible, this is it. Dark fantasy romance rarely gets this bleak, but it works because the emotional core between the leads is razor sharp. The story drops us into a grim secret academy where orphaned kids are raised explicitly to be living weapons of war. Sheena just wants the fighting to stop, but then she gets roomed with Mimi, an immortal child soldier who walks back from the battlefield entirely coated in blood, completely unfazed by death. The tension between them isn't about cute misunderstandings. It's life or death psychological weight. Watching Sheena's desperate desire for peace clash against Mimi's total indifference to her own mortality creates this heavy magnetic pull between them. Every interaction feels loaded, and the growing bond they form feels earned because they're literally clinging to each other's humanity in a meat grinder. It's dark, it's dramatic, and it doesn't pull any punches. If you like your romance wrapped up in heavy psychological stakes and high-tension survival, this one deserves a spot on your radar. Let's move to number 7. Coming in at number 7 is Taemon's B-side. If you've ever wondered what happens when obsessive idol fandom collides with a complete personality train wreck, this is your show. On paper, it sounds like standard shoujo comedy, but the execution hits a completely different comedic gear. The premise follows Utano, an ordinary high schooler working a part-time housekeeping gig who finds out her absolute favorite member of the mega-popular idol group F-Ace, Taeman Kinoshita, is actually a gloomy, self-loathing shut-in when the cameras are off. The contrast is hilarious. 1 second, he's the ultimate charismatic heartthrob on stage, and the next he's curling into a ball on the floor, convinced he's ruined his life because he looked at a fan the wrong way. What makes the dynamic work is that Utano isn't just swooning over a poster, she's knee-deep in managing his psychological meltdowns. It mixes sharp humor with surprisingly sweet emotional turns as they both realize they can be honest around each other without hiding behind an idol persona. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's genuinely funny without dragging out the romance. Let's move on to number 6. Coming in at number 6 is Hanakimi. Some classics are classics for a reason. Getting a modern animation of this legendary manga in the 2026 lineup was a massive win for traditional shoujo fans, and seeing it back on screen proved just how well the premise holds up. The story follows Mizuki, a Japanese-American track star who literally sneaks across the ocean, cuts her hair, and enrolls undercover in an all-male elite boarding school, just to get her idol Sano back into high jumping after an injury. The cross-dressing comedy hijinks write themselves, and the sheer panic of keeping her identity a secret from a dormitory full of chaotic teenage guys creates endless physical comedy. Beyond the comedy, what makes it stick is the emotional anchor between Mizuki and Sano. Watching Sano slowly pull out of his slump because of Mizuki's relentless support, while dealing with his own confusing feelings toward his guy roommate, hits all the right emotional notes. It's nostalgic, it's high energy, and the modern animation breathed totally new life into it. Let's move on to number 5. Coming in at number 5 is In the Clear Moonlit Dusk. If you want a traditional shoujo romance that handles tension with absolute precision, this is the one. Some shows rely on cheap comedy to hide their lack of chemistry, but In the Clear Moonlit Dusk leans all the way into genuine emotional atmosphere. The setup features 2 students who are both treated like royalty around school. They're both dubbed princes by their peers. Yoi is tall, handsome, and constantly admired by girls, which makes her feel isolated and unapproachable. Then she crosses paths with Ichimura, the actual school heartthrob who treats everyone with a cool, detached charm, until he starts looking at Yoi differently. What makes it work so well is the sheer magnetic tension between them. Ichimura doesn't play games or hide his interest, which completely catches Yoi off guard. Watching her figure out what it means to be seen as a girl, rather than just a cool prince, gives the romance a real, grounded heartbeat. It's gorgeous, it's atmospheric, and it treats its characters with respect. Let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You. If you are exhausted by high school drama and want a romance that feels like a quiet, comforting exhale at the end of a long day, this is easily one of the best adult romance adaptations in years. The premise is wonderfully grounded. Sasaki is a middle-aged corporate drone, completely ground down by his soul-crushing job. His only solace is sneaking behind the local supermarket for a smoke break, where he interacts with Yamada, a cheerful store clerk, who always brightens his night. What Sasaki doesn't realize at first is that Yamada is actually just a young woman living a totally different life outside of work, leading to this cozy, low-stress dynamic. The magic of this show is its pacing. It doesn't rush into explosive melodrama. Instead, it builds this incredible, comforting atmosphere where 2 tired people just find genuine comfort in each other's presence. Every interaction feels earned, human, and deeply relaxing. It's mature, cozy, and a breath of fresh air for anyone looking for a more grounded romance. Let's move on to number 3. Coming in at number 3 is Tune In to the Midnight Heart. If you want a romance that plays out like a high-stakes mystery mixed with genuine adolescent heartbreak, this adaptation was one of the cleanest surprises of the year. The premise revolves around Arisu, a high schooler obsessed with tracking down a mysterious midnight radio broadcaster known as Apollo, who used to mentor him. The catch? He knows she's one of 3 girls around him, but each of them has a totally different personality, and none of them are making it easy for him to figure out the truth. What makes it work so well is that it avoids feeling like a cheap harem cliche. The psychological push and pull between trying to solve the identity puzzle while genuinely catching feelings for these complex girls keeps the pacing sharp. It's witty, sharp-tongued, and keeps you guessing. It's fresh, compelling, and a massive win for romance fans this year. Let's move on to number 2. Coming in at number 2 is Love Unseen Beneath the Clear Night Sky. If you want a romance that completely steps away from loud high school comedy and delivers a deeply tender atmospheric story, this series is an absolute standout. The story follows Kakeru, an isolated university student who struggles to form real connections with anyone around him. Instead of forcing fast-paced drama, the narrative takes its time exploring how two people slowly learn to trust each other through quiet reflection and mutual vulnerability. What makes it land so high on the list is its patience. It avoids cheap tropes and instead focuses on the genuine, slow-burn healing process between the leads. Every interaction feels earned and deeply moving. It's quiet, moving, and a masterclass in modern romantic drama. Coming in at number 1 is You and I Are Polar Opposites. If you want a romance that completely shatters every tired, dragged-out trope in the genre, this is the undisputed king of 2026. Forget waiting 12 episodes for a handhold or enduring 50 episodes of agonizing miscommunication. The reason this show dominates the top spot is simple. It throws out the rulebook. Instead of dragging out a will they won't they dynamic until a final minute cliffhanger, the main couple, the loud outgoing Garu Miyu Suzuki and the quiet reserved Yusuke Tani, actually get together right at the beginning. From there, the show explores what happens after the confession. It's funny, deeply relatable, and captures the awkward, clumsy reality of teenage relationships without any manufactured drama or toxic padding. Every conversation feels like it was written by someone who actually remembers what it's like to be a teenager. It's refreshing, sharply written, and easily the best romance anime of the year so far. That wraps up our top 10. So that's the list. If you've been sleeping on any of these, definitely check them out. Let me know which one is your favorite down in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.